The cry for help, the unexpected signal Captain Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the endless expanse of space through the viewport of the Starlight Pioneer. Her mining vessel had been working the asteroid fields of the Kepler 438 system for 6 weeks, extracting rare metals for the colonies back home. The work was honest but boring, exactly the kind of routine operation that paid the bills, but never made headlines. The bridge was quiet, except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Her crew of 15 had settled into their usual rhythm. Chief Engineer Sarah Williams was in the engine room, coaxing maximum efficiency from their aging fusion reactor. Navigator Tom Bradley monitored their position near the largest asteroid in the field. Dr. Marcus Chun, their communications specialist and part-time xenolinguist, was reading a novel in his spare time. Elena had served in the Terran Space Navy for 12 years before retiring to civilian life. She missed the excitement sometimes, but the steady income from mining operations helped support her family back on Mars. Her daughter was starting university soon, and these long missions were worth every credit. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," Dr. Chun called out, his voice cutting through the peaceful silence. He was a thin man with graying hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "There's a signal coming from the edge of the system. It's not human." Elena straightened in her command chair. In 15 years of space travel, she had never encountered an alien signal. Humanity had found evidence of ancient civilizations on dead worlds, but no living species had ever been discovered. "What kind of signal?" "It appears to be some form of distress call," Shen replied, his fingers dancing across his console. "The language is completely unknown, but the mathematical patterns suggest intelligence. I'm running it through the linguistic analysis programs now." Tom Bradley looked up from his navigation station. At 25, he was the youngest member of the crew, full of curiosity and wonder about the universe. "Captain, should we investigate? We could reach the signal source in about 4 hours." Elena considered the options. They were a mining ship, not an exploration vessel. Their equipment was designed for extracting ore, not making first contact with alien species. On the other hand, if this was truly a distress call, could they simply ignore it? The translation DR. Chun worked feverishly at his station, cross-referencing the alien signal with every linguistic database in the ship's computer. The translation software struggled with the unfamiliar phonemes and syntax, but gradually patterns began to emerge. Mathematics was universal, and the distress signal contained enough numerical sequences to provide a foundation for understanding. "I'm getting fragments," Chun announced after an hour of intense work. "The computer is learning their language structure. It's definitely a plea for help." The speakers crackled to life with a computerized voice attempting to translate the alien words. "Help ... us ... please ... someone ... dying ... children ... scared ... running ... many days." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Somewhere out there, people were in danger. The fact that they were alien didn't matter. The desperation in that fragmented message was unmistakably real. "Can you get more details?" she asked. Chun nodded, fine-tuning the translation parameters. "The signal is getting stronger as we approach. They call themselves the Vaxery. They're describing an attack by something called the Skull Reapers. It sounds like they've been fleeing for days." More words emerged from the speakers, clearer now as the computer learned their language. "Trading ship. Families aboard ... weapons failing. Shields down ... please ... anyone. They kill for sport ... children crying ... Chief Engineer." Williams had arrived on the bridge after hearing the commotion. She was a practical woman in her 40s, with calloused hands and a no-nonsense attitude. "Captain, we're not equipped for a fight." We've got mining lasers and basic shields, but nothing that could handle real pirates. Elena stood up and walked to the main display, which showed their current position and the source of the signal. The Victory ship was moving slowly, clearly damaged. Behind it, several other vessels were closing in like predators stalking wounded prey. "Tom, how long until we reach them?" she asked. 3 hours and 20 minutes at current speed, the navigator replied. Elena made her decision. We can't just leave them to die. Sarah, I want you to see if you can boost our mining lasers. Maybe? We can at least distract these raiders long enough for the Victory to escape. Williams nodded grimly. I'll see what I can do, but don't expect miracles. The emergency broadcast as the Starlight Pioneer raced toward the alien ship, Elena ordered Dr. Chun to send out an emergency broadcast on all military frequencies. It was a long shot, but if any Terran Navy vessels were in the area, they might respond. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the civilian vessel Starlight Pioneer, she recorded. We are responding to an alien distress call in the Kepler 438 system. The alien vessel appears to be under attack by hostile forces. We are requesting immediate military assistance from any Terran forces in the region. The message was broadcast across dozens of frequencies, spreading outward through space at the speed of light. Elena didn't expect a response. They were in the middle of nowhere, far from any major shipping lanes or military bases. The chances of another human ship being within range were practically zero. What Elena didn't know was that her message had just reached the most feared military commander in human space. The Victory. Ship Captain Zara Okafor pressed her 6-year-old daughter Myra closer to her chest as their ship shuddered under another attack. The Peaceful Wanderer was a merchant vessel designed for trade between worlds, not combat. Her crew of 30 included families, traders, and skilled workers. None of them were soldiers. The Skull Reapers had been hunting them for 4 days. These savage pirates attacked without warning, destroying everything in their path. They took no prisoners and left no survivors. Zara had seen the wreckage of other ships they had caught, burned hulks drifting in space with no signs of life. Mama, when will they stop? Myra asked in their native language, her large eyes filled with fear. Zara didn't know how to answer. Their shields were failing, their weapons were exhausted, and their engines were damaged. The Skull Reapers were playing with them, prolonging the hunt for their own amusement. Her communications officer, a young male named Trix, looked up from his station. Captain, I'm receiving a response to our distress call. It's from an unknown species. Zara's heart leaped. Could it be possible? What do they say? They're coming to help. They say they're human, and they're only 3 hours away. Hope flickered in Zara's chest for the first time in days. She had never heard of humans before, but anyone willing to help was welcome. Tell them we're grateful. Tell them we have families aboard. The Skull Reapers War Chief Brutus Grimfang laughed as he watched the Victory ship struggle to escape. His crew of savage raiders had been terrorizing this sector for months, building a reputation for cruelty and ruthlessness. The Skull Reapers took what they wanted and killed anyone who opposed them. Grimfang was a massive creature, nearly 8 feet tall with thick armor and razor-sharp claws. His species had evolved from apex predators, and he had never met anything he couldn't kill. His fleet of 12 ships was armed with the latest weapons and crewed by the most vicious fighters in the galaxy. How much longer should we let them run? Asked his second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Bladetail. Grimfang studied the tactical display. The Victory ship was almost dead in space. Its engines were sputtering, its shields were down to 15%, and its weapons were silent. A few more minutes. I want them to know that no one can save them. His sensor operator suddenly looked up with confusion. War Chief, I'm detecting another ship approaching. It's small, probably a freighter or mining vessel. Grimfang's lips curled into a cruel smile. Excellent. 2 ships for the price of 1. When they arrive, we'll destroy them both. The unlikely heroes, the Starlight Pioneer, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the battle zone. Elena immediately saw the situation on her tactical display. The Vaxery ship was badly damaged, barely moving as it tried to escape. 12 Raider. Vessels surrounded it in a loose formation, taking turns to attack. "Sarah, what's our weapons status?" Elena asked. "Mining lasers are at maximum power," Williams reported. "I've also rigged some of our ore processing charges as makeshift missiles. It's not much, but it might surprise them." Elena nodded. She had commanded naval vessels in her younger days, but nothing like this. They were outnumbered 12 to 1, and their opponents were clearly built for war. Still, she couldn't abandon the aliens to their fate. "Tom, take us in. Target the nearest raider ship." The mining vessel accelerated toward the battle, its small crew preparing for what would likely be their final fight. Elena sent one last message. To the Vaxery ship, "This is Captain Vasquez. We're here to help. Hold on a little longer." What none of them knew was that their emergency broadcast had traveled much farther than expected. In a distant star system, Admiral Rebecca Jackson had received their call for help and was already mobilizing the most powerful military force. In human space, the galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone threatened innocent people in front of humanity. Asterisk, when Earth answers the Ghost Fleet Admiral Rebecca, Jackson stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, her flagship and the most advanced warship in human space. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver hair and steel-gray eyes that had seen too many battles. The Ghost Fleet was her creation, a collection of the most powerful and technologically advanced vessels ever built by humanity. The fleet consisted of 43 ships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. The Nemesis itself was a dreadnought capable of destroying entire space stations with a single volley. Surrounding it were cruisers, destroyers, and frigates, all equipped with experimental weapons that most of the galaxy had never seen. "Admiral, we've received an emergency broadcast from a civilian mining vessel," reported Commander Alex Morgan, her tactical officer. Morgan was a brilliant strategist who had graduated top of his class from the Naval Academy. "They're responding to an alien distress call and requesting military assistance." Jackson studied the tactical display showing their current position. The call had come from the Kepler 438 system, nearly 6 hours away at maximum speed. "How old is this message?" 2 hours, Admiral. "If we leave now, we might arrive in time to help." Jackson had built her reputation on protecting human interests throughout the galaxy. The Ghost Fleet was deployed only in the most critical situations, when overwhelming force was needed to resolve a crisis. This seemed like a job for a single destroyer, not her entire fleet, but something about the message intrigued her. A civilian mining crew was risking their lives to help unknown aliens. It was exactly the kind of selfless courage that made her proud to be human. "All ships, prepare for emergency jump," she ordered. "We're going to support our people." Her officers looked surprised. Commander Morgan spoke up. "Admiral, this seems like overkill. One destroyer could handle a few pirates." Jackson walked to the main view screen, which showed the lights of her fleet stretching into the distance. "Commander, when humans respond to a distress call, we don't send token forces. We send everything we have. Today, the galaxy learns what that means." The desperate battle, the Starlight Pioneer fired its mining lasers at the nearest Skull Reaper ship, the bright beams striking the Raiders' shields and causing them to flicker. The attack was like throwing stones at a tank, but it got their attention. "Direct hit on the enemy vessel," Tom Bradley reported. "Their shields are down to 80%. Elena felt a moment of hope, but it was quickly crushed as the raider ship returned fire. Energy beams slammed into their shields, causing the entire mining vessel to shake violently. "Shields down to 60%, Sarah Williams called out. "If they hit us like that 2 more times, we're finished." The Skull Reapers had noticed the human ship and were treating it as a minor annoyance. 2 of their vessels broke off from tormenting the Voxery to deal with this new threat. Their weapons were designed for destruction, not mining, and they outclassed the Starlight Pioneer in every category. Dr. Chon was still in contact with the alien ship. "Captain, the Voxery are thanking us for trying to help. They say no one has ever stood up to the Skull Reapers before." Elena gripped her command chair as another blast shook the ship. "Tell them we're not giving up. Sarah, fire everything we have." The mining vessel launched its improvised missiles, chunks of processed ore wrapped in explosive charges. The makeshift weapons caught the raiders by surprise, detonating against their hulls and causing minor damage. War Chief Grimfang was furious. These humans had dared to attack his fleet with mining equipment. It was an insult that demanded a violent response. "Destroy them," he ordered. "I want nothing left but debris." The arrival space itself seemed to tear open as the Ghost Fleet emerged from hyperspace. 43 warships materialized in perfect formation, their arrival creating energy signatures that lit up every sensor in the system. The ships were massive, each one larger than anything the Skull Reapers had ever seen. Admiral Jackson stood calmly on her bridge as the tactical display updated with enemy positions. 12 raider vessels surrounded 2 smaller ships, 1 human and 1 alien. The situation was clear. "All ships, battle stations," she ordered. "Target the hostile vessels. I want them neutralized immediately." The Ghost Fleet moved with deadly precision. Years of training had turned them into a single, unified weapon. The ships spread out in a perfect sphere around the raiders, cutting off all escape routes. On the Starlight Pioneer, Dr. Chun's instruments went wild. "Captain, I'm reading. Massive energy signatures. Something big just arrived in the system." Elena looked at her display and couldn't believe what she was seeing. Dozens of huge warships had appeared out of nowhere, each one bristling with weapons. "Tom, are those human ships?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm receiving identification codes." "It's the Ghost Fleet." Elena had heard stories about Admiral Jackson's legendary fleet, but she had never imagined she would see it in person. These were the ships that had ended the Centauri War in a single battle, the vessels that made pirates and warlords flee in terror. The one-sided Battle War Chief Grimfang stared at his sensors in disbelief. The energy readings were impossible. No one had a fleet this powerful. His weapons officer was trying to count the enemy vessels, but the numbers kept growing. 43 ships, the officer finally reported. "All of them are larger than our biggest vessel." Grimfang had never felt fear before, but now it crept up his spine like ice water. His entire fleet was surrounded by ships that outclassed them in every way. These humans had brought enough firepower to destroy a small planet. "Open communications?" he ordered. "Maybe we can negotiate." But Admiral Jackson was not interested in negotiations. She had seen the damage to the civilian ships and the terror in the distress calls. The time for talk was over. All ships open fire. Show them what happens when innocents call for help. The Ghost Fleet attacked as one. 43 warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously, turning space into a storm of energy and destruction. The Skull Reaper vessels were caught completely off guard, their shields collapsing under the overwhelming assault. Grimfang's flagship lasted exactly 4 seconds before it was torn apart by concentrated fire from 6 human dreadnoughts. The war chief, who had terrorized the galaxy for months, was vaporized instantly, along with his entire crew. The remaining raider ships tried to flee, but there was nowhere to run. The Ghost Fleet had them surrounded, and their weapons had range advantages that made escape impossible. One by one, the Skull Reaper vessels were destroyed, their crews paying the ultimate price for their cruelty. The rescue with the raiders eliminated, Admiral Jackson turned her attention to the damaged ships. The Starlight Pioneer was badly hurt, but still operational. The alien vessel was in much worse condition, its life support systems failing. "Deploy rescue teams to both ships," Jackson ordered. "I want full damage assessments and medical support." Captain Elena Vasquez found herself transported to the flagship of the most feared fleet in human space. Admiral Jackson greeted her personally. In the main hangar bay, treating her not as a minor mining captain, but as a hero who had risked everything to help strangers. "Captain Vasquez, your actions today exemplify the best of humanity," Jackson said, shaking her hand. "You risked your ship and crew to help people you had never met. That's the kind of courage that makes our species great." Elena was overwhelmed by the attention. "Admiral, we just did what anyone would do. We couldn't leave them to die." Jackson smiled. "Not anyone, Captain. Most species would have calculated the odds and decided the risk was too great. Humans are different. When we hear a cry for help, we answer with everything we have." The grateful aliens Captain Zara Okafor was brought aboard the Nemesis with her daughter and the other survivors from her ship. The Vaxari were humanoid, but with different skin tones and larger eyes. Despite their alien appearance, their emotions were easily recognizable. "Admiral Jackson," Zara said through the translation device, "you saved our lives. We can never repay this debt." Jackson knelt down to speak with young Myra, who was hiding behind her mother. "There's no debt, little one. When good people are in trouble, we help them. That's what friends do." Dr. Chun had been working with the Vaxari to establish better communication. "Admiral, they're offering to share their star charts and trade routes. They say they want to establish formal relations between our species." Jackson nodded. "That would be welcome. The galaxy needs more cooperation between peaceful species." The message spreads news of the battle spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. The destruction of the Skull Reapers sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. A pirate fleet that had terrorized an entire sector for months had been eliminated in minutes by a species most criminals had never heard of. The footage of the battle, captured by long-range sensors, showed the Ghost Fleet's overwhelming response to a simple distress call. 43 of the most advanced warships ever built had traveled across space to rescue a single alien trader ship. Criminal organizations throughout the galaxy began to take notice. These humans didn't just protect their own people. They would cross vast distances to help complete strangers, and they had the military might to back up their convictions. The new reputation Admiral Jackson stood in her ready room, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Intelligence agencies were scrambling to learn more about humanity and its capabilities. Several pirate groups had already abandoned their territories rather than risk encountering the Ghost Fleet. Commander Morgan brought her the latest updates. "Admiral, we're receiving communications from 17 different species. They're all asking about establishing diplomatic relations." Jackson smiled. "Good. The galaxy needs to know that humans are here, and we're not going anywhere." "What about the Vaxari?" Morgan asked. "They're heading home with our protection. I've assigned an escort of 3 destroyers to make sure they arrive safely." Jackson looked out her viewport at the stars. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. They had shown that they were not just another species competing for resources. They were protectors, willing to fight for justice and defend the innocent. A simple SOS call that had started, it all had changed everything. From now on, when people in distress looked to the stars for help, they would know that somewhere out there, humans were listening and ready to answer with overwhelming force. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the species that treats a stranger's cry for help as their own emergency. Asterisk.